The Bills have made multiple moves as training camp kicks off. New signings, surprise cuts, and injury updates all hit within hours as veterans report to camp. Buffalo is already tweaking the roster with position battles heating up and early injuries shaking things up. Let's talk about what happened and what it means for the upcoming season. My name is Maeve Miller and I'm a part of the Bills Digest team, so please subscribe to our Bills Digest YouTube channel. So first topic I want to talk about is the new players that were added, and this includes tight end Matt Sokol, and he's been around in the league a lot. He's been on 7 different teams since 2019, and yeah, he started off in 2019 with the Chargers and was kind of more a practice squad player. But then in the interim, he became like a free agent, had a couple practice squad time with the Jaguars and then the Patriots, back to the Chargers, and then had 2 full seasons with the Patriots before going to the Steelers practice squad. He had a brief stint with the Lions too, and he honestly hasn't played in many games since then, but he definitely has bounced around and experienced a lot of different teams since then. And the Steelers chose not to re-sign him in this offseason, which is why the Bills decided to pick him up. As I said, he's a tight end, so that does bring up, we would talk about that position a lot and how the Bills do seem to have like a good starting couple tight ends and backups, so it is doubtful that Sokol would play necessarily or make it to the final cut, but it's nice to have another body, especially because of some injuries that are going on that I'll talk about a little later. And in that time with the Patriots, in those 2 seasons, he only played in 3 games and really hasn't played in a lot of games since Michigan State, which is where he went to college, and he played in 52 games over the course of 4 years. So there's not much really to say about him, but it is an exciting prospect because he is a really big dude, and, training camp, a lot can happen in then. So there's a picture of him at training camp, and he's clearly very physically fit, big guy. So, you never know what could happen with him, especially with some of the injuries that are going on. The next player is David White, and he is a wide receiver and a second-year undrafted free agent. He originally was signed with the Jaguars last year, but had a knee injury in the offseason that led to him not playing. And it's a little bit more about him that the Bills had posted, and just kind of talks about how, he was originally signed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but was released in June, and he missed his entire rookie season with a knee injury sustained during the offseason. And, he was kind of a under-the-radar player. He played D2 football for a couple years and put up good numbers then, and then moved on to Division I, but transferred a couple times. But yeah, like I said, him and Sokol getting playing time is a little doubtful, even though that 5th spot is still open. There's a lot of like I said, competitions going on for that. So we'll have to see what happens with White and Sokol, but I feel like, honestly, they might not be making it through to the end of training camp, and right now they're kind of there to be extra bodies, which is fine. It's good experience, at least. But there was a little, controversy because to make room for these players, the Bills released Jake Camarda, which is the punter, and there's people on Twitter what, do we just not have a punter now? What is the deal with that? So they had to, release some players to get new players on, so that's a little bit interesting. And like I said, there are some position battles that are heating up, and it's kind of clear that Buffalo is not super pleased with the bottom tier depth that's going on, because that's why they're kind of signing these new players that are, undrafted or are veterans that have been bouncing around a lot of teams. But I would say the main thing is the tight end depth because, as this tweet says, Dawson Knox is rehabbing on the field today because he is currently out with a non-football injury. And Dalton Kincaid would be the first spot and the starter for the Bills, but Dawson Knox coming at second usually. But with this injury and him not playing, it does bring up that there are some other open spots, and that the third spot for the tight end would most likely go to Jackson Hawes, who is a rookie. And some people are saying that maybe Sokol could, make more of a difference, or at least be an extra body with Knox being out, because Knox is also I feel like with our tight ends, Kincaid is more of the receiver kind of tight end, and Knox is a lot more of the blocking. And looking at Sokol, since he's just a big guy, that maybe he is more of that blocking type, which is why they brought him in, just to kind of replace Knox while he's getting better. But I do hope, obviously, that Knox, it seems like he'll be fine for the season, and hopefully that this is just a brief stint. When I looked on the article I was reading was on Sports Illustrated, it did not mention specifically what their injury was, and they didn't know quite yet. On Twitter, it said that it might have been a hamstring injury, but that's still a little bit up in the air. You can see he has something on his leg, so it seems like it has something to do with that. So yeah, that is kind of why I think they brought in Sokol. And when it comes to White, as I said earlier, that wide receiver's fifth spot is still open, and there's kind of a battle for that. As of right now, I'd say like the leading depth chart of the wide receivers, we have Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and the newly signed free agent Joshua Palmer. And that fifth spot might be kind of up in the air for the newly signed Elijah Moore, who's from the Cleveland Browns, Tyrell Shavers, Jalen Virgil, and then potentially David White, depending on what goes on. So there are some battles, and I like how the Bills always have that mantra that it doesn't matter how you were brought onto the team, whether you were undrafted or the top number one pick. It doesn't matter. It just matters how well you play. And that, I feel like there'll be a lot of good battles, especially with the wide receivers. I'm excited to see what happens with that because the Bills do get a lot of hate for not really having that main star wide receiver that a lot of other teams have, Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. We just don't have that. Even though Shakir had a very good season, got a huge extension because of that, there's not a guy that's putting up over 1,000 yards, which is fine. We had that with Stephon Diggs, and we don't need that anymore, honestly. I like the way we do things, but it does, get some healthy competition going, which is always good. And, cream rises to the top, so we'll see what happens with that. And I've been talking about injuries a little bit. Dawson Knox, that's probably one of the biggest ones that came out of training camp. But another notable one is Spencer Brown, who is the right tackle. He is on the PUP list, which is physically unable to perform. And that's kind of a big loss because I feel like he's a really big part of the Bills, that offensive line. So I definitely hope that he'll be back. It seems like he will. There wasn't a lot of concern about that. And another player that's on that PUP list is rookie center Cedric Von Pran-Granger. And obviously, as a rookie, not sure how much he's going to play, but it is just something to note and just be on the watch for. That hopefully these two guys will be able to play. And once PUP just means once they're cleared, they can practice like usual. So it's not super serious. And excitingly, on the other hand, the rookie Landon Jackson that people are very excited about. He's a defensive end. He got removed from that PUP list. So he is, on the mend. He's healed is what he said about it. He says, body feels great. I'm ready to get going. I'm fully to go for camp. So I'm really excited about it, which is definitely positive news. I feel like there was high hopes for him as an edge rusher. He's a big guy. The Bills, I feel like, and fans are very excited about him. He's 6'6", and that's just kind of what the Bills tend to draft or bring on when it comes to those big defensive players. But yeah, after losing Von Miller and Joey Bosa is hurt, having him as an edge rusher, I think the Bills are kind of expecting him to start if things go well. So I think obviously an injury might set him back a little bit. But there's a lot of, this is just minor news as of right now. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. There's a lot of other things. There's mention about Dorian Williams possibly being hurt and on that list. So we'll definitely be updating you guys as this goes on because training camp did just kick off. But yeah, as of right now, there are a lot of, Bills are making moves with bringing new people on, cutting people, and just having to fill the gaps for injuries or those cuts. Yeah, like I said, we'll keep you guys updated. And thank you for watching. Go Bills. And please, once again, subscribe to that Bills Digest YouTube channel. Thanks.